All right, ladies and gentlemen, with me is Chris Lacy. Chris has been a guest on many different podcasts, including Podcast Juice with Michael Dean, Prince's friend, Eloy LaSanta's podcast on Prince. I'm really thrilled to have Chris with me today. Chris, thanks for being here on the Purple Curd podcast.
Yeah, thank you. I am happy and honored to be a part of the show. I think we got a blockbuster on our hands on this one.
The 2001 obelisk known as the Sign of the Times Super Deluxe set. This thing right here is I know we got represent.
Absolutely.
This is so. Before I hit the record button for this, Chris and I can tell the enthusiasm is 1,000% or higher because our love for Prince and our understanding. We were talking about different genres. I'm jumping all over the place. Me and my ADHD. That will happen. I will guarantee.
I'm guilty.
Party of two. So. My recollection the first time in hearing this album, and I'll be interested to hear yours, but I'll kick things off with, as I told you, I came a little late to the game in the Prince world, in the Prince kingdom. And I knew who he was. I knew Little Red Corvette. I knew, 1999. I loved those songs. But, as this teenage suburban kid, living a white teenage suburban kid living, where hard rock and heavy metal ruled the land where I was, where guys were dressing like drag queens anyway. The whole gender bending thing happened with groups like Motley Crue and
Kiss and
the hair band. Right. Exactly. But what really struck me with Prince and made me stand up and take attention was actually watching live. I just happened to be home. I guess it was a Friday night. I don't remember or Saturday night when the 1987 VMA Awards were on.
Yes.
And next up, Prince. And all of a sudden I hear that guitar introduction, which he would do for Sign of the Times Live. And I'm like, what the hell? And the plasma ball, they were zooming into that. I'm like, what the hell is this? I'm like, oh, it's a new band. Oh, it's not the Revolution. It's this whole different thing. And he did those first two songs he had done on the truncated Sign of the Times tour, I would later find out.
Mm-hmm.
And, Sign of the Times and Playing the Sunshine. And I just was blown away. And Cat dancing and gyrating,
yes.
and the whole drum line thing that was coming up to the front of the stage with Sheila. Yeah, I'm like, holy mother of God, what? So that was my introduction. And many months later, I was working in a hotel and conference center in Connecticut. And this was, making decent money. At that time, it was like $8 an hour in 87. I was making good money. And I was the only white guy on the dish crew. And so I was exposed to all kinds of stuff from this guy, Junior, and all the other crew, the posse that was working there. I would give this guy a ride home late at night. In exchange for that, I got beer. I got a 40 dog. I knew what a 40 dog was as a 17-year-old kid.
That's no good, man.
And house parties and all kinds of other stuff. Oh, listen, I was into good trouble back then, even back then. But the album that didn't leave on cassette, no less, was this album. And late night, be done at 12 or midnight, working these weddings or banquets or whatever we were doing. And in addition to all the different albums that were coming out at that time, Public Enemy's, It Takes a Nation of Millions to Hold Us Back, still one of my favorite. That's
Stone Cold classic right there.
You're not joking. And this album were in heavy rotation in my car.
Yeah.
79 Chevy Caprice, white exterior, powder blue interior, absolutely god awful. but great jams were playing on the inside of the car, and things like Ballad of Dorothy Parker to this day, on that album, still one of my favorites. And next to 777 9311, some of the most creative drum programming Prince would ever commit to a Lindrum machine.
Yep.
So that was my introduction to Sign of the Times. And then I get to see the Lovesexy, that's a whole other subject for another day. I'd see the Lovesexy tour.
Yep.
A year later, but and then buying the concert movie and then watching that over and over and over and over and over again, and just dissecting every single second of it.
Hmm.
And what was your introduction to Sign of the Times? What brought you to Sign of the Times?
Yeah, man. So yeah, my journey with Prince is pretty unique. I think you said at the top of the show, I'm only 30 years old, born
Mhm.
February 90. So
Hey,
so for
listen,
like
shout out to the shout. Listen, you are the new kings of the world, baby. You know, you're the ones. You're the torchbearers for the rest of the younger crowd to do this.
You're right. You're right. And it's going to come down to, like you said, it's up to my generation now to tell the right story. We have to have the right people at the forefront telling the right story.
Amen.
So yeah. So for the first, I would say maybe, I mean, and still to this day, I still listen to this artist, but like for the first 20 years of my life, like I was just raised on all kinds of music, but the main person at the forefront was Michael Jackson for me.
Sure.
So I didn't hop on to Purple Rain until I got into college. So I was 19 when I finally sat down and watched Purple Rain from front to back, and really got into. And
Sure.
then I guess my first um, introduction to Prince's. Well, okay, so yeah, let me rewind a second. So my first ever song that I ever heard by Prince, believe it or not, was "Scandalous" during the end credits of Batman, because I
Hey,
was huge on
nothing wrong with
superheroes
that.
as a kid. Yeah. So when I heard that, I was like, what the heck is this? Like this sounds like amazing to me. I've never heard anything like it. And so then yeah, there you go.
Sorry. There's
No, you're good.
one of the first things I actually learned how to sight read on the piano, believe it or not, was that song.
Wow.
Oh yeah, I have my own jazzy interpretation of it. That is it. Listen, I don't care what anybody says about the Batman soundtrack. That thing's freaking genius. The Future,
Yes.
probably one of my favorite songs on that. That is just the drum programming on that's insane.
Yeah. Insane.
I mean,
Insane.
yeah, we were talking Sign of the Times, but we're talking about your experiences and coming to the Sign of the Times and listening for the first time.
Yeah, so I'll kind of speed this up a little bit because I know I can get a little long-winded. So
get long-winded, man. This is
yeah. So first song I ever heard by Prince was "Scandalous," and then a few years later, when I turned 19, I'm into Purple Rain. My mom had the very best of Prince on CD, so I'm getting familiar with the hits,
Sure. Yeah.
And then fast forward a couple years later, March 21st, 2011. I remember that date specifically because my mom surprised me a few weeks before, because my birthday was in February of 2011. So I just turned 21. My mom surprised me with tickets to go see Prince here in Columbia, South Carolina.
Oh,
and according to Principal, this is that date that he came. That was the last time that he had ever come through Columbia. And the first time he came here was in the Controversy Tour. So he'd only been here twice in Columbia, South Carolina. So for me to catch him the last time he was here, like that's just, man.
Where was that in Columbia, Chris? What
It was at let's see. Oh my gosh, I just blanked out on the venue.
Okay.
I want to say it was the Township Auditorium is where he came. Okay. Yeah, so it's like right there in the heart of Columbia, South Carolina. It's right down the road from where the Gamecocks play football. So
go.
Yeah, true Gamecock right over here. Even though
I know, I've seen your swag. Swag. That's great. Shout it out.
Oh, for sure. So that was Prince was my first mainstream artist that I had ever seen in concert. Prior to that, I had only been to Christian concerts. So
sure.
After seeing him rock the house for 3 hours, and at that time he's 52 years old at that time. And he has the energy of a 20-year-old. And I'm like, I am blown away by this guy. Yeah. So it was after that show, I had to own as much Prince music as I possibly could. And,
sure.
At that time, with him scrubbing the internet, it was very hard to find stuff. So you had to know the right people to get to, to get to the good stuff. So that's 2011. By August of 2012, I'm now getting into Sign of the Times. Okay. And I've already listened to Purple Rain, Dirty Mind, 1999, and I want to say the other album that I dove into was Parade at that time. So I'm pretty familiar with like the heavy hitters at that point.
Sure.
And then I remember specifically going on a road trip to Kentucky to go meet with my family from Kansas, because we have some folks that stay in Kentucky. So we all met there.
Oh, cool.
For about a week. And on the way there, I'm in the back seat. My parents are, driving the car. My sister's in the back seat. I'm fully absorbing everything about Sign of the Times, and I'm like,
Sure.
I cannot stop listening to this album. It's the one that I keep coming back to. And gosh, I absolutely adore this record. Pun intended when I say that.
Listen.
Yeah. Man.
Until the end of time. This is
yes.
the end right here. We can pun with this thing all day long.
Good.
This is.
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
I was going to say it is an album that once you listen to, your impact of it. It's a sonic patch of different ideas and sonorities, and the Camille voice comes into this song, and this comes over here, and there's a Fairlight patch here, and there's a drum track over here, and getting the nitty gritty on things like Ballad of Dorothy Parker, where that's the very first song. We're talking Paisley Park history. That's the very first song. If you go through the Dwayne Tudall book, and in this Super Deluxe, that's the very first song recorded in Paisley Park, and he has the patience of a gnat on crack. So he has no patience at all. He gets Susan Rogers in there and wants to record. And the
fresh tape
is messed up and fresh tape. He'll say fresh. It's time. He's ready to roll. Well, everything was messed up, and she didn't want to say anything to him. Fear of getting fired or whatever. And he's like, sounds a little dull, but maybe it was meant to be that way. So he took moments like that, because he'll be the first person to say, yeah, and some of my mixes are terrible on my studio albums. That it wouldn't be till the 90s until he got into a more polished sheen. With his sound, if we're maybe I'd say even Graffiti Bridge to a certain extent, Diamonds and Pearls especially. You get into Graffiti Bridge, there's a little bit of more of a sonic sheen. But with this album, it was just in the like many of the recordings in that 84 to 80, 82 to 88, 89 period of the moment ruled. It didn't matter whether sound levels were at perfect and all that. And the great thing about this album is it has that spontaneous, fresh. Every time I listen to it, whether it's remastered, whether they put the levels up, which they've done a lovely job. I mean, Bernie Grumman, who did the original master,
hats off to him. Album.
Salute to you, sir, Bernie. And his interview with Mike. Salute to Mike Dean over at Podcast Juice, Podcast, the official podcast for Prince. and our friend Eloy LaSanta, because I know everybody out there in the community. You're known for being on both their shows.
And if you don't mind, I want to give a special shout out to 1/4 of the Peach and Black podcast. I'm real good friends with Playa out there in Australia.
Oh man, yeah. Listen,
that's
Peach and
one of my good friends.
Guys, yeah, they toe jam all those guys. They really they bring it in detail. I mean, they're recounting and recollecting of the few shows he did for piano and microphone down there.
Yes. Oh man, some of my favorite episodes they've ever done.
Woo! Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Give a big shout out. So when I dug into this deluxe box set, I just the small details in songs like If I Was Your Girlfriend, there were certain sonorities and certain things that they brought out in this album that I either had heard before but hadn't heard in such clarity and such detail. We won't even get into the vault tracks yet, because that's a whole other.
That's a beast.
Big ball of wax, humongous ball of wax. But initially, my take on this, I don't know what your take on this is. My take on this is that I don't think that they necessarily gave more bottom end. They just brought the levels up and just cleaned up the sound. I mean, the levels were brought up. You now can put this on your playlist, and it doesn't. It's not. The main complaint I think we as hardcore Prince fans had was that Sign of the Times just got the short end of the stick. It was the first CD I ever bought. I still have the CD from '87. I popped it in there, and I'm like, something kind of fell a little flat.
Yes.
This amazing album. Even Love Sexy, the original pressing of Love Sexy is 10
Yeah,
times.
Love Sexy sounds incredible.
Yeah.
Dynamic sound
Yeah.
on Love Sexy.
But this not so much. And it was like, oh man, what but this is the album that needed the. So here it is, we're talking, 31 years later, almost 32 years later, and we finally have this lovingly remastered set with all the B-sides and edits, which some people consider, we really don't need all that, but some of us had the maxi single to
Maxi singles. Yep.
maxi single, I know, back in the day, to things like La 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 He, the song that he wrote with Sheena Easton, based on a dare. Yeah, I bet you can't
I
write
know,
this.
that's crazy. That's crazy.
I bet you can't write I bet you, Prince, I bet you can't write the words La 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 He. I bet you can't come up with a song like that. And it's like, oh yeah, watch. And that funky James Brown workout, and just, which went on in the extended mix, and wouldn't have that on CD until later. And then, I mean, I could go all over the place with this stuff, but just initially my reaction was like, oh my God, I'll be the first to admit, there are certain hierarchies within the Prince community of people who are uber fans, and then there are those who go a whole other notch and whole other. They've bartered and traded and begged, borrowed and stolen, and all these different bootlegs. And I wasn't necessarily one of those people. I was in grad school when some of the bootlegs was coming out, and I didn't have all the money in the world to spend on that. I only remember hearing, and when I was in grad school, Peabody Conservatory for Music in Baltimore, I remember going into this record store and somebody was playing the sitar Fairlight programmed version of Strange Relationship that Wendy and Lisa had done. And I heard this in the background. I looked at the bootleg and they were actually like 150, 175. They were asking for a lot of bread for this. I think it was a lot of stuff that would have been on Dream Factory and Camille. I'm like, I don't have the money for that. Ended up getting a Purple Rain tour rehearsal bootleg for $45, but I got to at least hear a snippet of that, and I wouldn't hear the alternate mix until fairly recently.
Wow, okay.
Oh,
okay.
I just totally geek out on that. Yeah. So I knew some of the play orders of Crystal Ball thanks to the Vault. I knew this. Okay. Oh, that song. We see the roots of other albums in the future. I mean, Rock Hard in a Funky Place, which would have shown up on. Who knew that was not just going to be? We all knew that from the Black Album. Many of us later on. Speaking of bootlegs,
right?
And I have the '94 reprint. I had it on vinyl, a copy on vinyl years ago. I don't have it anymore. I don't have it anymore.
Man, that's too bad.
It's a bootleg copy. I mean, it's not the official with Warner label on it, but.
Gotcha.
I did get the 1994 reissue, which I still have. And it's just the impact that this album and the vault of material that he had for what would be potentially the Camille album, which did get pressed, like the Black Album, and then they pulled it at the last second. The Dream Factory, which would have been the Revolution's last album, which he decided, nah, I'm gonna scrap that, and then try to do a triple set with extra new songs for Crystal Ball. So you have this whole treasure trove, and for friends of mine who are not necessarily hardcore Prince fans, he had roughly about 5 albums of material ready to go, of new material.
Yeah.
That didn't have a home. Train.
Yeah.
For instance,
Train is another one that
which is on Mavis Staple, which was reworked for Mavis Staples' Time Wait, which I do have, which is out of print.
Time Waits for No One.
Yeah, Time Waits. What a great album that is.
Absolutely.
And that song, and the backing vocals are completely different. So to make a cross comparison to that, all these songs that didn't have a home, I just can't fathom. What do you do when you're the ocean and you're just constantly, the waves are just constantly coming, and Warner Brothers is the dike trying to hold back the flood of material coming out.
So I'm glad you brought that up for a second, because I surprise a lot of people when I say that I think Warner Brothers did the right thing by trimming this down to 2 discs. Because I think any knowledgeable Prince fan would be like, yo, hey, the more the merrier, like keep bringing it, right? However, I do understand from a business perspective to trim it down to 2 discs. Because from Warner Brothers' eyes, like
Yep.
you've seen like the peaks of Purple Rain, 13-time platinum record. We get Around the World in a Day, which, by the way, for those who don't know me, 85 to 89, that's my sweet spot when it comes to Prince. Like, I always come back to that period. That's the psychedelic patch for me. I absolutely adore that period.
Not hurting anybody's feelings over here at all. That's fantastic period. That's the most fertile period.
Yep. Exactly. So 85, got Around the World in a Day. It still puts up good numbers, but it's riding on like 9 months right after Purple Rain. This drops, and people are like, don't really know how to feel about it. Some like it, some don't.
He dropped it, and he didn't heavily promote it at first. And they finally, look, you got to make a video for this thing.
Mm-hmm. Which, by the way, I love the fact that he never looks in the camera for Raspberry Beret. Like, that's his way of like saying, I'll do a video, but I'm not looking in the camera just because I want to be a bit of a prick about it. So, so I kind of appreciate that, because that's such a princely thing to do. But I found that fascinating that he did that. And then coughing you have coughing in the video, which to me was kind of a Beatles callback to me.
Oh, sure.
From the Revolver album. Yeah.
Well, the whole album was, basically Susanna Melvoin, his girlfriend at the time, is having him listen to the Beatles albums, which is essentially what this was his response. That was his response to it.
Yeah.
So if you consider Around the World in a Day his Sgt. Pepper's, because the cover kind of has that psychedelic, montage look of the different characters and stuff, which are all him. And then
that's interesting. Yeah.
And then you go to Parade, which is kind of like a magical mystery tour in reverse and in a way. It's got some I Am the Walrus moments for sure, because there's a sonic tapestry using the orchestra with Claire Fisher for the first time. Much like the Beatles used an orchestra, and but of course. He was a one-man Beatles.
He was.
He didn't need John, Paul, and George and Ringo. He was John, Paul, George, and Ringo all rolled up in one.
And then some.
And that, please. I mean, the Chops, they would have been lucky to have had a drummer like Prince in the Beatles.
No kidding.
Not for nothing. Sorry, all love in the world to Ringo Starr. I'm a huge Beatles fan, but let's be honest here. He didn't need 18 takes of the one song. He just would do it in the first take or two. That's it.
Yep.
He didn't need anybody there. Anyhow.
With Warner Brothers, like I can appreciate the fact that they did kind of trim it down, just because they weren't seeing the return on investment. And I'm sure that frustrated Prince to no end, because he's like, why are you putting a cap on it? Yeah, exactly.
There were many. We weren't exactly in a recession, but the economy was not doing very well. Inflation, I remember, it was very, and the prospects of having a triple album, the guys were like, and they handed it to Lenny Waronker to deliver the bad news of, look, Prince, you got to make a double album. There's no way. He told the execs, there's no way that you're going to get this guy to do anything less than a double album. Just give him a goddamn double album. I'll get him to trim some things off, but and try to make it as affordable as possible. Because even then, a double album was $18 or $19. I remember when the vinyl first came out. I don't have that kind of bread. And CDs were even more expensive. They were $25, $30. We're talking 1987.
That's right. Yeah, because I want to say CDs started to kind of rise like in early 85 is when CDs really started to come out around that time. So you're right. Like the advent of that new technology, like it was $25, $30. It ain't cheap. Ain't cheap.
No, it wasn't at all. I mean, like I said, the first CD I ever bought was this album, and because I had to have it on CD, I had to have this, which we were great. Like I said earlier, we were greatly disappointed. But if the Round the World in a Day album was his Sgt. Pepper, not exactly, but if we put it in a Beatles-like framework, this was his. I don't want to say
this is his white album.
This is the white album, but it's the Peach and Black album.
I like that.
It's not the white album, it's the Peach and Black album. It's his take on, he's got something for everybody on this album. When anybody who's a neophyte to Prince or doesn't know Prince, I point to this album, because you want Sam Cooke, you've got, Slow Love.
Slow Love, yep.
You want rock, you've got, I Could Never Take the Place of Your Man, which still blows my mind that, with the vault tracks, that this existed in 79. This was an album he had it sitting in the. This is a song he had as a demo sitting in the can from the second album.
I know we're darting all over the place, much like the album itself. But yeah, I can never take the place of your man. Yeah, and to know that he did that in '79, because you got to think like just timeline wise, what's the next album that comes out right after his self-titled album, Dirty Mind.
Dirty Mind.
And the song on that album that reminds me most of I Can Never Take the Place of Your Man, the demo version, is When You Were Mine.
You Were Mine.
Like sonically, they're very similar.
Perfect.
So like, so like it fits. It fits as far as like where his mind was, and like he's kind of leaving that that polished disco sound and going for something that's grittier. I think I saw like the AV Club. It said like Dirty Mind sounds like it was recorded under Prince's bed.
Right.
I love that description of it.
And shout out
just because it's so raw.
Shout out to Casey Rain, because I think he had brought up about Prince's first 3 albums on his Violent Reality podcast series. So shout out to you, Casey.
Shout out to Casey.
Basically, he had spent so much money on his first album, For You, that he had to trim the budget for the second album and did it in less time and got a hit, with Why I Want to Be Your Lover. And that was had an even tighter sound, less, full, multi-harmony vocals. He still had some of that, but it was definitely trimmed. By the time he got to Dirty Money, he didn't have any money. So
there was nothing left.
Out of necessity, he records this in his home studio. Yeah, and they basically sound like demos. Like, no, this is perfect. You had the punk movement at that time. Remember, 1980.
The Clash are huge at this point.
Oh, sure. The Sex Pistols. Never mind the Bollocks, and yes, the Clash is a perfect example. The Damned, and all these groups, and you had the new wave movement coming in. So that album was perfect, but the fact that he knew that I can take that and I can catalog that for later. This is almost like to me, this album is almost like a family snapshot album. As he has different peaks of where he was and where he was in the now at that time.
Moment.
And he had various snapshots of things that he was looking forward to. He didn't record really a song like It, all those like hush megaphone vocals that you'd hear like Nine Inch Nails.
It's all in the background.
Well, like Trent Reznor and Nine Inch Nails would copy that playbook. He's a huge Prince fan.
Yes.
Anybody that doesn't know that Trent Reznor has a Prince influence, go back and listen to the Downward Spiral. Go back and listen to some of that stuff. There's Sign of the Times stuff all over that album.
In fact, I'm glad you brought him up for just a second, because if there was anyone that I wish that he could have collaborated with, it would have been Trent Reznor, especially towards the end of his career. Imagine what he could have got out of Prince during that time. Now, don't get me wrong. Like I'm appreciative of what we got. Like Artificial Age is probably in my top 10 favorite albums ever.
Mine too. The last true great, really for me, and I like Hit and Run. I know you don't like Hit and Run Part 1.
Yeah, Phase 1 I don't care for. Phase 2 I'm a fan of. Phase 2.
That definitely, Revelation in particular is my favorite.
Oh gosh, yes, man.
I still had those falsettos, but the Artificial Age is, and his last return to Warner Brothers, give them an album for getting his masters back. I can get, I'll give you another album. Okay, I'll do the remastered Purple Rain, and I'll give you another album. But what a gift that was. Yeah, but true. Sure. I mean, Trent Reznor and Prince. Can we take? I need a second.
I was about to say, like, just the thought of that would have been crazy. That's crazy.
Prince, I could see it happen, but I couldn't see it happen at the time Downward Spiral happened, because
probably not.
He was taking one look at that Charles Manson stuff, in New Orleans. He would be like, you ain't coming to my turf.
Yeah.
No. But maybe later on, sure. If they can if Lil Nas X can take Old Town Road and off of the Nine Inch Nails instrumental and turn that into a humongous, I can imagine. Maybe Cardi B will do. Anyway, let me not derivate too far off the.
That's a topic for another day.
Oh my God, or not.
but I love the description you gave a second ago about saying like this is the family snapshot of where he had been, where he was in that moment, and where he was going next. Like it captures everything in one beautiful snapshot. And
but there was something missing, and that was
what's
Susanna
that?
and Wendy.
Yeah.
But I mean, Forever in My Life's there. Apparently he wrote that for her. And Adore apparently was written for her as well. I mean, there's many songs that are supposedly attributed to her. I mean, she was a muse for many of the songs on this album.
Yeah.
So
I'd argue that she's his greatest muse, just based on the songs that we know that were inspired during this album. I mean, Vanity's a close second, very close second, but Susanna brought out something in Prince that we had never heard before. So,
I mean, Starfish and Coffee.
There you go. Yep. Cynthia Rose, man. Like that, just hearing that story, like when she spoke with Housequake a few years ago and gave a whole backstory on that, like that was such an eye-opening story for me to read up on. And I believe I included it in my anniversary piece where, Prince had talked about battling with epilepsy. I think he talked to Tavis Smiley around the Lotus Flower era.
PBS.
Yeah.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
So to know that and then connect it back to Susanna opening up about Cynthia Rose, that was like, it was such a refreshing song to hear from Prince at that time because anytime that he wrote like an intimate song, it was usually revolved around sex. But here he's showing a side of his intimacy that we're not used to seeing, and it was so refreshing for him to be tender in that way.
There are songs on this album, and I will tell you as a side note, as not doing it right now. I'm taking a gap year with music education, but I was an elementary music school teacher in Maryland at Jessup, Maryland for 11 years.
Oh wow!
And I had my chorus sing my last year there before knowing that my spouse and I were going to move up to the Philly metro area. I had them perform Starfish and Coffee.
Oh wow!
I had my 4th and 5th graders sing it.
That is so cool.
Yeah, I'll have to send the video clip at some point if I can find it.
Please do.
I have it archived.
Please do.
But or maybe I'll throw it up here too. But
I was gonna say throw it on
that's
the channel.
we had a whole dance. Starfish and Coffee, maple syrup jam. Yeah, butterscotch clouds with the tangerine, and they had little choreography movements. Because it really is a kid's song. It's the first time that you had a Prince song that was appropriate for kids.
Yeah.
I couldn't think of too many other ones I could have done. No. And when I had to address the audience, the auditorium parents, I said, yes, there is a Prince song. It's actually appropriate for kids. It's a cute little song. They love that song, by the way. And
awesome.
I have kids who email me to this day, mentioning how they got to sing the Starfish and Coffee song. And teachers who love that song, love Prince because of that song. They didn't really know Prince. So, we can spread the word in different ways, get the little ones too,
Exactly. So and then for him to perform it a few years later on the Muppet Show.
Yeah.
That whole clip is awesome.
Yeah. Oh, and they're singing, re-recording it. And
that's right.
And She Gave Her Angels is on. Oh yeah, that's a fantastic episode.
Yes.
In '97, I saw the Emancipation Tour. Oh, that's a whole other. We'll go off on that too. We've got, but he frequently when he would do his piano medleys, though, and including the 2015 show. Did he do Starfish and Coffee? No, he did do it during his piano medleys. When I saw the Love Sexy show, he would do it.
I remember he did that during Love Sexy.
But when I saw him in 2015 for the last time for the Freddie Gray benefit concert.
Yeah, in Baltimore. That's right.
I was there. I got to hear. Oh, I was there, man.
Great
he
show.
got the 18,000 people to yell "No curfew." I was there. Aaron and I, my husband Aaron and I were there, and he'd never seen Prince before. And his boss, he's a research scientist, and his boss happens to have seen Prince 26 different times in his life. He's a top neuroscientist. Shout out to John Krakauer, Dr. John Krakauer, top stroke neurologist in the country, and he's a major Prince fan.
Good.
He's an enigma like Prince too. There's a reason why he relates to Prince in various ways, and John, you know you do. But brilliant in his own world of neuroscience. But he was at that present at that show too, and he had, but he DJ'd himself, his own songs, looped and stuff like that, and he did a little bit of Sign of the Times and Hot Thing. He looped.
Yeah, he would throw that in the sampler set.
Yeah, I was like, oh, can't you do it? Can't you play it live? Oh man. Yes, I love hearing How Come You Don't Call Me Anymore on the piano. I do. I'm not going to lie to you. I've been spoiled that way, but man, just a little bit of, anyway. But
yeah,
this album is definitely, my favorite of all time. I mean, I can't fault. We could go track by track. Housequake. People that say that he dismissed rap and hip hop, I say, now wait a minute.
Okay. All right. Let's go there. Take it there.
He didn't. He did, and he didn't. He was pissed off that he wasn't there first. That's my take on it.
Okay.
I mean, the
that's
whole Dead on It thing was a parody. Rapping them lyrics down, they got to be dead on it. You can't be lazy. You got to come up with your own thing. That we go to the Black Album, but Housequake is rap. It is his version in his take, house, right? It's house music.
Yeah.
It's his take on hip hop, his version of a house party. To me, I think that's quite the hip hop flavored song. Yes, it's got the James Brown influence. Yeah, it's got all that. Yes, I'm aware of that.
Yeah.
But not everybody, let's do the twist a little bit harder than it did. That's basically James Brown with a little more house flavor into the mix. It's not proto hip hop, but if I had to put a label on it, it'd be proto hip hop. It's not hip hop, but it's his version of house and what he could do with rap elements. I mean, he's rapped before in tracks earlier in his career. It's not like he never
did it.
Happiness is doing what we do, in the Parade album. I mean, he has had snippets of rap. I mean, he's done it.
I would even take that Irresistible Bitch is probably the earliest sign of rap.
Yes.
Yeah, for sure.
Correct. Yes.
Yeah.
Amen and hallelujah. I mean, he did rap.
And I'm glad I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. Say that again.
You're fine. I said, no, he did rap. You're right. He did that. Yeah. That would be the early,
And I'm glad you mentioned James Brown, apart from what usual people say, like, like the horn section, with Atlanta Bliss and Eric Leeds, definitely some heavy James Brown vibes. But the Godfather of Soul, to me, originated hip hop. Like, you go back and listen to his earlier records when he's just freestyling and ad-libbing, that's the essence of rap right there.
Well, Clive Stubblefield's instrumental, The Funky Drummer Alone. I mean, how many times
one of the most sampled
of all time. It's right up there with, believe it or not, it's right up there with Billy Squires, the Big Beat. Look that up, because everybody.
Yeah, I need to go back and look that up. I'm sure I've heard it. I just don't. I can't align the sound of it.
This Girl's on Fire.
Oh, okay, yeah. Alicia Keys, yeah. I can hear the sample in my head.
Yeah, I can hear it. So that is actually just lifted directly, but that again,
interesting.
People taking a famous, well-recorded drum beat and incorporating that, but Prince didn't have to do. He would later go on and do sampling.
Sure.
I think my favorite is 7. On the
that's a great
use
song.
of sampling, but he didn't have to do that. He could lift horn lines and stuff like that and sneak in a little bit of this and sneak in a little bit of that. I mean, Help Me, I Think I'm Falling with Joni Mitchell. He the first time I really heard him quote
another artist
like that was this album, right? So you got Ballad of Dorothy Parker, and one of his favorite artists of all time.
Yep.
Then we find out in the vault tracks, and we're going all over. I know I'm going all over the place. I knew this.
Oh, it's okay. Hey, I'm with you. I'm more concerned about your audience. Are they going to be like, hey, like, what? Where is this going?
Oh,
Because
listen.
I feel like I'm adding to the problem a little bit.
Oh, please add. This is a glorious burden to have.
Okay.
You don't necessarily have to own this album, but for those who want to really own one album of Prince's, if they only owned one Super Duper Deluxe and all the trimmings and have years and years of stuff to be able to appreciate, this is it.
Yeah, that is
You
it.
have the 1999 box set because some of the outtakes on there, quite frankly, I don't have to listen to them again.
Yeah, same here.
It's
Same here.
Some of it's like, yeah, okay, okay, yeah, I can. Some of them are cute. And I'm like, they're not like this. And
I
then
agree.
speaking of Joni Mitchell, the songs that I'm curious, like "Emotional Pump," which is
Yeah.
a song that he had written for Joni in mind, and Bonnie Raitt.
Yeah, Bonnie Raitt.
Man. And what's the other song that he?
I believe he wrote a "Cosmic Day" for the Bengals as well.
Oh my God! And you could totally hear them do that.
Yeah,
What a brilliant song! I can't get that song out of my head.
I agree. Like when I heard this version, like as I was in the car, I was like, "This sounds like it belongs at the end of like this John Hughes coming of age teenage film, like 16 Candles or The Breakfast Club." Like you can hear it in the end credits as the you're seeing all the actors and actresses that are in it. Like it seems like it belongs at the end of a movie, and you're
like
like
a Ferris Bueller
sequel
sequel or something, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
Maybe
great,
that can happen.
Great stuff,
maybe there could be a Ferris Bueller sequel, and maybe we'll get Cosmic Day in the movies. Damn it!
Who knows?
John, he's no longer with us. Hasn't been with us. Maybe
I know. Yeah.
Oh Lord! Yeah. Listen, you're talking my era now.
hey, listen, I'm a sucker for
that.
Yeah, I'm a sucker for the '80s now, like Goonies, all that stuff. I'm a huge fan of that stuff. Love it.
There's a topic that for another day we could
okay, for sure.
So with all the tracks, the live album, the live albums. I'm sorry.
Albums. Yeah, that's right.
DVD's a whole different thing.
Yeah,
I'm not. A lot of people. I don't know that I have any disappointments in this album whatsoever. Again, there are many people say, "Well, this track could have been put in here. This track could have been put in there." All those who know all the bootlegs and the vaults and when things happen, where I don't have any great disappointments in this at all, including the fact that the Sign of the Times DVD, the concert film, is not included in this because at the time, Cineplex
licensing.
Warner Brothers did not want to pony up another movie for him after Under the Cherry Moon.
Under the Cherry Moon. Yeah.
And it's a charming film. I mean, Kirsten Scott Thomas's first screen debut is that movie. And a lot of people don't know that. Like, really? Oh, Kirsten Scott Thomas got her introducing Kirsten Scott Thomas to the world. But with that, having said that, I'm not disappointed that it's not here because we get this New Year's Eve concert.
Yes, man. Huge plus for them adding that.
Absolutely. Yeah. And the sound completely restored again by Bernie Grunman, and the video. You don't need a Blu-ray.
The video.
Blu-ray wasn't going to add that much. I have people that complain, why can't we get this on Blu-ray? Why can't we get the 1999 stuff on Blu-ray? Why can't we have the Purple Rain Live at Syracuse on Blu-ray? It's not going to add that much definition to it. Really isn't.
And like you said, I love the quality of the show because it takes you back to 87. It puts you right there.
I want a little VCR in my 80s when I watch this kind of stuff. I'm not going to lie.
Exactly. I don't mind the bleeding, on the screen. Like I'm all for that. All for it.
If it sounds good, I'm there.
Yeah.
And having the Utrecht Holland performances.
Yes.
Oh my God. And a lot of complaints I'd seen reading different blogs and what have you is that you couldn't hear the audience. I'm like, this was a soundboard recording. Come on, guys. You're not going to hear the audience totally shouting and screaming. And this is a soundboard and a damn fine soundboard recording too.
Yes.
He ended up spending a couple of days making like a residency in Holland at last minute. He added shows there because he's like, oh, this audience is really cool. I think I'm going to do a couple of days here. I'm going to cancel this major city, that major city. I think he even canceled a Paris gig so he could spend time in Holland. I'm like, okay.
I want to say Kurt Loder, before he ended up going to MTV and being an anchor, I want to say that he was with Prince, kind of covering that
Yes, he
period whenever
was.
he had
You're right.
canceled the
He
Paris
was.
gig. So yeah, I loved his article in Rolling Stone magazine. Great article. If anybody has not read it, go check it out. Yes,
yep.
definitely check it out.
Kurt Loder, a journalist for Rolling Stone magazine for many, many years, co-wrote Tina Turner's biography, What's Love Got to Do with It, as well.
Oh, I did not know that.
Yes, he did. Yes, he did. He helped her write that book. And
that's awesome.
He's like 75 or 77 now.
Yeah, he's got to be up there. Like
we're all getting up there, Chris. Trust me.
We are, because I could still remember. I remember turning on, like I was maybe 3 or 4 at the time, and I remember seeing.
Get my walker.
I know. anytime I start talking about stuff from back in the day, like I'm be like, I know you probably feel like you're aging like milk now that I told you.
Everybody's back in the days relative, man. Everybody's back in the days. It's all good.
But I remember turning on the TV and watching Kurt Loder, report MTV News and all that stuff, and I'm like, man,
you heard it first. Oh,
yeah, exactly.
They covered the Love Sexy stuff. Oh yeah, and now you can go back and watch it on YouTube. It's all on YouTube.
I know, man.
We didn't have that. The thing that that we have now, and I'm rediscovering things that I didn't know. I'm always learning, as we do. We all learn in life. There's a treasure trove out there. I could name a whole host of. I really don't want to name them aloud because on YouTube, because I don't want the stuff taken down. Fantastic soundboard recordings and rehearsals of this, that, and other thing. And the first time he'd do Strange Relationship, and you hear him working songs out before he commits them to. But having this. And having like the live version, I'm thinking of things that are on this box set that were really revealing. Power Fantastic, and having him give notes,
instruction right before they record. Oh my gosh! Like you really feel like you're there in the studio with them.
Oh, and and I love the Power Fantastic, the version we got on the hits and the B-sides.
On the hits and B-sides, yeah,
fantastic, and it's well done. But this has a whole different thing. When you listen to him giving the instructions, stuff like that, to me, it takes me back to Brian Wilson of the Beach Boys.
Good analogy.
The Pet Sound. Well, he is a Brian Wilson and the Wrecking Crew all in one. As a matter of fact, you can make a connective narrative thread, because Wendy Melvoin's father was a member of the Wrecking Crew back in the day. He was a professional.
Right. That's right. I do remember reading that.
So there is that element in Prince's music already. She was only 19 when you were first getting to know Prince. That was the age she was at when her first gig was live Prince doing the Purple Rain.
Yep, so she was waiting in the wings.
She already had a pedigree and has that lineage of the Wrecking Crew. And but hearing him talk is like hearing Brian Wilson when he was giving directions to all these top session musicians who were like, who is this guy? What the hell is he telling? When they were recording Good Vibrations. One of the greatest recordings ever. Ever. Outside of Prince's world. That's just mind-blowing. And I've seen it live. And it's just stunning. Oh, wow. And and to me, he's for the 80s, people are like, oh, the 80s music was so vapid. You had, these one-hit wonders and, Aha's Take on Me, classic example. Great song. Classic,
yeah. Great song.
They had other great songs, too. The Sun Always Shines on TV is a great song.
There you go.
They did. They did. They had more. They did. But MTV really blew up one person's song, and then you wouldn't hear from them again. Prince was the exception to that rule. He was like the Beatles and the Beach Boys. And funk,
George Clinton,
Clinton, absolutely. Strange Relationship, those Bernie Worrell like synths at the end of Strange Relationship. Yeah, he had all that. He could slide all that in one melange of sound. It's incredible. He impressed.
Yeah. I guess the one description that really stands out to I kind of hear this in two different ways. To me, like Sign of the Times is almost kind of like a museum of Black American music. Like really can pick a lot of stuff. You have gospel, you have blues, you have rock and roll, you have funk. I mean, there's just so much here, and he's kind of like he's the conduit for all of that history coming through.
Oh, I couldn't agree more. You want your Woodstock moment? You go to the cross.
Oh gosh, man! Don't get me started on the cross, bro. Don't get me started on the cross.
To me, that was just getting to hear that live. I want to tell you right now, when he did that on the Love Sexy show, because that would be the only time I'd get to hear it. The only time he'd played in the States was on the Love Sexy tour, and having those flanged guitars, and having the light effects from the great Roy Bennett have with the cross and the whole.
That's right. Yeah.
That's
man. I'll tell you, I fight back tears every time I hear the horns at the end of the cross during the Love Sexy tour. Like, yeah, right at the end, and he just and Chris holds that guitar note. Oh my gosh, man! Like, I wish people could, like, especially being a Christian, people don't understand, like, there are so many songs in Prince's catalog that are ready for church on Sunday. The Cross is one of them. You could throw that up and not even say that it's from Prince, and people will be moved by that song.
Oh, absolutely. And
fantastic stuff.
It is fantastic stuff. If we go to the vault tracks for a second, he has.
Let's go.
What's this? No. What's the one that's Walking in Glory?
Yeah.
It ends up being parts of the instrumental of Two Nigs United for West Compton on the Black album.
I know.
Like, wait a minute.
Yeah.
He took that song from going to church to West Compton. What?
All the way over there.
I did an oral double take. I'm sitting listening. Is that Two Nigs? I'm hearing I'm listening. I'm going, whoa.
And you have a great point about how, like, you'll hear traces of other songs that came from this period. So, like, with the Cocoa Boys, you have that synth patch from You Got the Look, and it also appeared on number 8 on Madhouse 8. So I'm like, that is so cool how he was able to weave all of that together. And then, to bring up the concert film, and when he did I Can Never Take the Place of Your Man, same horn line from Rock Hard in a Funky Place. Like, that's so dope how you threw that all together.
Yep.
It makes no sense for someone to do that.
And that riff was written by Eric Leeds, actually.
That's right. That's right.
What's it called? Oh, geez. I know I'm blanking, but he wrote it. He wrote the Hurricane, it's a little riff that he wrote as an original thing. And but he doesn't get credit.
He talked about it on Michael Dean's show a couple years ago.
He did. Yes, he did.
Yeah.
Oh my God. All 3 parts of that. I could listen to all 6 hours of that.
Master storyteller he is.
Shout out to Eric and Alan Leeds. Those guys give 150% true. Could listen to them over. They're the reason why have been digging deep into the Miles Davis rabbit hole.
Yeah, for sure.
Just fantastic stuff. So, where else can one go with this album? There's my one
more. Or go ahead. I'm sorry.
I was going to say the Shep Pettibone remix of Strange Relationship.
Yes. I went on YouTube and listened to it, and there were even people there. Like, there were a couple of people who said, I came in here wanting to hate this remix, and I can't. Like, they enjoy it that much. That was impressive.
You take Shep Pettibone, who worked with George Michael, worked with Janet, I think, at some point.
Yes.
And Madonna, of course, produced a whole album with her. But if you know the song Hard Day off George Michael's Faith album, there's the Shep Pettibone remix. There's a lot of hits and a lot of samples and stuff that he used and drum patches that he used on Strange Relationship, but it does not detract from the song at all. I kind of wanted to go, what the hell's Shep going to do with this? It's going to make it sound like cheesy 80s. No, it's really cool. There's an extra vocal track in there. It's something on the one. You hear Prince yelling something, come on the one. Now I'm wondering to myself, was that just left over in the studio? Was he telling Shep? I mean, anyway, these are the things that go through my crazed brain here.
No, you're fine. I wanted to come back to
please. Reel me
the
back
gospel
in.
aspects of it. No, you're good. If I had to pick one Volt track out of the whole set,
Yes.
When the Dawn of the Morning Comes is the one that I come back to the most. I adore that song. It feels like
insane.
It feels like a Saturday night house party. Like kind of like it's got that Baby I'm a Star vibe, and then it crashes a Sunday morning revival. Like it all comes together. It's, oh my gosh, I love that song.
Saturday house party revival. There you go.
Yeah.
Who else would bring the sacred and profane all together at once, but none other than Prince Rogers Nelson?
Yep.
Well,
he was a master at that.
It's astonishing. And there's so many other tracks and so many other ways to go with this. I'm having a panel discussion with this because I can't leave this out. You cannot leave this album alone. You cannot simply encompass this album in an hour, but it's worth all. I mean, I didn't get the vinyl. I couldn't afford it. I got the CD.
I got the CD version as well.
Sorry. I mean, the coffee table book is fine. I saw some complaints on Amazon about people getting their CDs scuffed. I didn't have any problems whatsoever.
Neither did I. I'm glad.
But is there outside of the classic 2 albums, out of the 2 CDs, is there a particular out of this box? Is there a particular disc you go back to?
Okay. It would have to be disc 3. That's the one I go back to, the one that kind of kicks things off with that I Can Never Take Place in Your Man demo and all that. Yeah. Now I'm trying to remember, is Adonis and Bathsheba on disc 3, or is that the next disc?
That's on the next one.
Okay. All right. So it's a toss up between 3 and 4, because Adonis and Bathsheba, man, I out of respect for Susan Rogers, I'm gonna try to word this nicely. Yep, you know where I'm going with it. You know where I'm going with it.
Preach. You have the pulpit.
So, I get that she was there for a lot of Prince recordings and she was blown away by stuff. On that particular day, you should not have laughed at Prince and said that this sounds corny, because that is one of the finest ballads that man has ever recorded.
Cheesy and corny and cheesy, she called it. She says, this is
I could not believe her.
I mean, you got to give it to her for giving Moonbeam Levels a lot of love.
Yes.
Okay, because that's one she's like, I can't believe this never, he'd put it on an album configuration and then it would come on.
That's right.
Then he'd put it on another album configuration and it would come on. It would even probably have been in Crystal Ball in some way, shape, or form, or one of these, and then it comes off. It's like, and I get how brilliant a song that is. It is a really great song. It's truly unique. But yeah, Adonis and Bathsheba, I mean, it definitely, I think it was one of those cases where he could have gone with that. It's like Purple Rain, before he had the beautiful ones, he had Electric Intercourse, and it was a choice between those 2. In this, he had Adonis and Bathsheba, and then he had Adore. So if I had to compare 2 songs, okay, you see where I'm going with this? So you have Electric Intercourse, which I think Electric Intercourse and Adonis and Bathsheba are the same kind of, in that same group. They're great, but they're not The Beautiful Ones and Adore. They're great songs. I totally get why he didn't put it on any album.
Here's where if I could ever go back in time and talk to 86, 87 Prince, I'm like, how is it that Slow Love makes it on this record, but you have Joy and Repetition sitting in the chamber?
Oh my God.
I'm like, come on, you got to put that in there with Adore. You got to put it in there. Make it fit some way.
My favorite version of Joy and Repetition is on the After Show album.
Talking about 2002?
Let me tune the guitar up a little bit.
Yep. He's like, how long you been waiting?
One of my favorite. That's now. Speaking of Joy and Repetition, and I'm so glad you brought that song up, Chris. This leads me to my next twisted segue, because I know we're going on. I'm notorious for going all over the place with this. It's one of those albums that it's so sprawling. How can you possibly encompass this in an hour and a half, 2 hours? You just can't. This is hard. This is a teaser. I mean, they had
It
eight,
is.
the purple current with Andrea Swenson had 8 parts to, and you could, and there was a lot of stuff on the cutting room floor. They did an 8-part podcast on this. You could have easily done 2 or 3 more episodes of that and still had room for more discussion. But that's the beautiful thing about this album, is that you're
Michael
going to have many
Dean.
more years.
Oh, I'm sorry. I keep cutting you off. I am so sorry.
No, go ahead. Go. It's the delay. It's the delay.
Oh, okay. Michael Dean, I haven't had a chance to listen to all the episodes yet, but he already has like one episode that's like 3 hours long. I'm like, and I know they went it.
Vault one.
They went it. That's right. Yeah.
They kind of trimmed it. Michael, shout out to you, because I've listened to all 3 Vault things. And if you're a Patreon subscriber, I haven't been on that bandwagon yet, but if you're a Patreon subscriber, you get to listen to that stuff earlier. And these guys are worth every penny.
Michael Dean's definitely one of the best.
Gold standard.
One of the best.
He is the gold standard when it comes to this stuff. As is Eloy and Prince's Friend. These guys are the gold standards when it comes to the discourse on one of the world's greatest artists up there with Duke Ellington and Leonard Bernstein and all these luminaries.
Yep.
In my not so humble opinion, but all right, we should probably. I don't want this to end, Chris, but we should probably leave it there, but I would love to have you back on. I know you've got some irons in the fire. You care to mention about what you're working on right now?
Yeah. I'm juggling a few writing projects at the moment. I can tell you the one that I've been spending the most time on is the 30th anniversary for Michael Jackson's Dangerous album. It comes out next year. But man, I'm telling you, I am so excited about this piece, because I'm even kind of tempted to share with you just the intro that I've written, because I've already shared it with like a select few people that I trust, and they're like, Chris, this is going to be interesting where you take it. So
please.
Yeah, give me just a second. Let me see if I can find it.
You could spend a whole afternoon discussing Who Is It with me. That
yes,
song alone.
I love that song. Love that song.
That just.
So I'll tell you what, just for the sake of time, I'll just kind of paraphrase it a little bit. So you can do a Google search on the best pop albums, and you'll come across the usual suspects like Sgt. Pepper, Thriller, Purple Rain, Rumors by Fleetwood Mac, etc. Now do the same thing and look for the best gospel albums. You'll come across like Aretha Franklin's Amazing Grace, Kurt Franklin's Hero, etc. But there's an album that's missing on both of those lists, and it's Michael Jackson's Dangerous album. That's my teaser.
Okay. As opposed to like all the classic stuff that he did with Quincy Jones.
That's right. That's right.
Because this is the first Quincy-less album he does.
That's right. This is first time going without Quincy Jones, because through the years he had been criticized of kind of being a producer's canvas. Like he couldn't make a hit record without Quincy Jones in his corner, even though they forget all the stuff that he did with Motown and what he did with his brothers, as they got older. It's like, come on.
So, this would be a great topic for another day, though. I'm going to tell you what.
Yes, let's
bring
do
you
that.
Back on. We'll talk about I can talk some Michael now. I can talk some Michael.
Let's go. We'll do it another time.
Absolutely. had to go there. Listen, and Michael, just thinking that around the time that Bad came out and Sign of the Times, those 2 albums, I played the hell out of the Bad album.
And if you don't mind, I have one comment that I want to use at the end of this, and this will kind of put a bow on everything that we just discussed. The one thing that I find interesting about Sign of the Times and Bad is that Sign of the Times, the title track, is to me kind of like the what's going on of the 1980s. Like it gives you a right hook and says all the stuff that's going wrong with the world. And then that came out in March of '87. Now fast forward to August of '87, Michael comes out with Bad. And one of the 5 number 1 hit songs on the album is Man in the Mirror. And what I find interesting about that song is like you have Prince saying that, hey, here's what's going on here, here's what's wrong with the world. Now Michael is inviting you to be part of the cure. If you want to make the world a better place, take a look at yourself and make a change.
Some of the greatest Michael songs he never wrote. I mean, Santa Garrett wrote that for him.
Yep.
I'm sure he had
Her
his
and
input and everything like that. Some of my
for
favorites,
sure.
my two favorite. If I can, we'll dip our toe in Michael for just a hot second because you
Yep.
can't talk about Prince and not have Michael Jackson in the conversation. You just
Yeah.
can't, because he nearly was on the Bad album, and you didn't want to sing the first line, "Your butt is mine," because people already, homophobia in 1987 very prevalent. Prince did not want anybody to insinuate anything between him and Michael. Let's call it out there for what it is.
That's what it was.
And "Your butt is mine," he didn't want to be singing that part. And the fact that he would have been the Wesley Snipes character in the Martin Scorsese directed video, I would love. I bet there's an opportunity for somebody out there to put a deep fake version of it with Prince in there.
Oh yeah.
I'm giving somebody out there. Well, if anybody watches this anytime soon, and give somebody an idea out there, but that's beyond my technical grasp. I mean, I'm look at my low budget here. I'm like 1981 MTV VJ over here.
It's all good, man.
So where can people find you? I know you're on Facebook. Where can people find you to find out more about you? I did put a link, by the way, for his articles that he's written. And you got to read this young man's writings and articles on reviews of albums.
Oh, man.
Absolutely great stuff on albumism, right?
Yep. Mm-hmm. Yep. That's where I started out. And for the record, like if anyone goes back and reads my stuff, I've only been writing, like albumism was my first start. So I started in 2016. I have no journalism degree, nothing fancy to my name. I'm just a guy that loves music and loves having deep conversations about it. So that's where I got my first start. Since then, starting this year, I've been doing independent pieces on medium.com. So that's where I've done a couple pieces on Michael, and then I did the piece on If I Was Your Girlfriend that I shared with you the other day. And plan to do more.
And I'll make sure I put that.
Definitely will.
I'd like the people to know where you are now.
Yeah. So if anyone wants to find me, I'll provide those links for medium.com, albumism.com. And then you can find me on Twitter at Chris Lacy 90. That's ChrisLacy 90.
The year he was born, ladies and gentlemen.
That's right.
Look, hey, listen, no matter what your age is, there's never a wrong time to get into Prince, and there was never a wrong time to get into it. Better late than never, folks, because this album's not going anywhere. This is in the Mount Rushmore for me. This is Mount Rushmore right here. There's a little everything you want. So with that, thanks for being again, Chris, on the Purple Kurt podcast. I'm your host, Kurt Hoffman. Thanks again to Chris for being on here with me, and hopefully we'll all be able to meet at some point post-pandemic, getting a vaccine so we can all go to these, Paisley Park events and stuff like that, which I have not yet been to. I for my 50th birthday this year, I was supposed to go to Paisley Park. I had DJ Michael Holtz remote DJ for me. But he was going to do it live, but I've already booked for next year. So hopefully we get to party like it's 1999 or 87, whatever.
There you go.
And the Shep Pettibone remix of Stranger Relationship will be on the set list. I can guarantee you that one.
There you go.
But anyway, folks, you got to check this out. It's not just Sign of the Times. You got the look. It is a treasure trove of unreleased tracks that were on the bootleg market scene, but are officially cleaned up and are represented in a fashion that, with accompanying live recording and a live DVD with the late, great Miles Davis also on some tracks with at the very end, which we didn't get to talking about, but we could spend another hour talking about Miles and Prince.
Yes, we could.
Get the Sign of the Times Deluxe Box Set. I've seen it's actually for $140 right now on Amazon for the CD set. It's actually gone down a little bit in price.
Yep.
So please get it. And once again, thanks a lot, Chris. And we'll see you next time here on the Purple Kurt podcast. All right. And